Thank you so much, Cynthia. Thank you for that amazing interpretation. Um, Hello, everyone. My name is Bryn Evans, and welcome to Homecoming. Um, I'm gonna get started and address the space, and then we're gonna hear some and feel some lovely poetry. Tonight's event is being live captioned by Otter AI, the transcription of which you may access by clicking the red live link in the top left of your screen and selecting View Stream. The transcript will subsequently open in a new browser window. Again, we have the honor of having ASL interpreter Cynthia Norman in this space. Cynthia, thank you for laboring to restore relationships between deaf, hard of hearing, and hearing communities in your work, for advocating seamless access to poetry. Thank you for modeling what it means to understand and convey meaning. We are blessed to have you here. If you have any Zoom questions or to run into any difficulties during this event, please don't hesitate to reach out to anyone with staff after their name, and they will support you in resolving any issues. Tonight's moderator, the dear Roberto Montes, is now adding a link to the chat with Zoom tips and best practices. Please note that we are recording tonight's event. You are welcome to have your cameras on or off as you prefer, but please keep in mind that if you have your camera on, it's possible your tile will be included in the archived video. In the words of Nima Githire, I ask, is it possible for us to laser focus in on love at the paces in which it already exists and allow that pace to inform our personal and collective work? Tonight, we are grateful for you joining us in an ongoing effort to build and nurture safer spaces where we can be moved and learn through feeling together. Thank you for imprinting this space with your care. We offer in return the grainy residue of memory, the milky salve of community. Roberto is now adding to the chat the Poetry Project's statement on safer spaces. If this event were taking place in the Poetry Project's physical venue, we would be gathered in St. Mark's Church in the Bowery. St. Mark's Church is located on the unceded homeland of the Lenape people, Lenape-Hoking. I am presently residing on the unceded land of the Muskogee Creek Nation, and duly honor the ongoing histories of enslavement in this southern landscape. I thank my ancestors forced to till the land of the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians in the Muskogee Creek. They are the original poets who freed themselves with song. In the Black Shoals, Tiffany Lathabo King writes, I do not believe that genocide and slavery can be contained. Neither has edges, yet each is distinct. Each form of violence has its own way of contaminating, haunting, touching, caressing, and whispering to the other. Their force is particular yet liquid, as they can spill and seep into the spaces that we carve out as bound off and untouched by the other. It is true that the 5 civilized tribes made the choice to enslave Black people to prove their own humanity. It is true that as a Black person born and raised in the South, I occupy land that was never mine to occupy, except out of a survival I am still reckoning with. It is time that we acknowledge another truth. Black abolition and Native decolonization go hand in hand. Our futurity goes hand in hand. Roberto is putting a link to a map in the chat now, not to endorse it as complete, but to invite you to join us in learning continually about the land we occupy, its history and ties, as a path towards deeper accountability. Born and raised in Decatur, Georgia, I echo sociologist Ruha Benjamin when I say that I come from many Souths. My guiding frameworks are derived from the multiplicity, vernacular, and inversion that I learned from my kin. They've taught me that viewing the world from a place of undersight, from the flip side, from the margin, can breed an infectious sense of possibility for artist, audience, and curator. Coming from the South, I work from a space of communion, comfort, and intimacy. I'm taken with discoveries and rediscoveries that allow for these tenets to swell in spaces that were once thought too small to bear them. The title of this series, Getting Where We Have to Be Something Other Than a Place, is a nod to two essays in Ntozake Shange's collection of writing, Lost in Language and Sound. It points to the vernacular poetics and landscapes that comprise the American South and the African diaspora more broadly. Today's program is titled Homecoming, Language's Capacity to Guide. In the spirit of homecoming, I am joined by four dear kindred spirits that continue to sustain this world with their words, this word with their worlds, whose writing feels to me like coming home. Before I introduce them, I will open the space with a poem I have written that found libation in Sonia Sanchez's present. It is untitled. In present, Sonia Sanchez says, "And I dance my creation and my grandmother's gathering, from my bones like great wooden birds, spread their wings while their long-legged laughter stretches the night. And I taste the seasons of my birth, mangoes, papayas, drink my woman coconut milks, stalk the ancient grandfathers, sipping on proud afternoons." I say, my mama sings sweet tea, pour into kitchen window, orchids like nectar, rain bless the morning. With honey brew, hear her hums through walls, thin as shed leaves, runs round the staircase. Her hymns, brown babies, birth bulbs, bloom buds black as sugarcane. Mama's music coats my tongue, my sisters with sound supple, lips thick molasses. My mama care Coca-Cola, bring bottle bubble over from the Wayfield on Columbia Drive. Make way out of no way, mama medicine like mama make better, like repair Kool-Aid prayers in the midnight hour. Years back, I remember opening her refrigerator door red topped with tin foil, lifted the silver veil and drank enough for me to feel something, but not enough for her to tell. So there my mouth where was a sharp cold can. I sipped until I felt the better she knew, the better she knew. My mama preached peach tree outside her house in Kingston, Georgia. She take root and reach elixir into us. She rescue, give us air. She rise, rings 100 years old out her hands. Her branches touch the small we hold and lungs too full to move. Miracle, my mama, tell the soil to drain out, tell the lung to let go, let go, let go. Amazing knuckles remind me of hollows or pecan-colored burrows, hands mold out of memories, my flesh formed libation leaping out of lunar wombs. With a song round my waist, tremble like a newborn child troubled with new breaths. And my singing becomes the only sound of a blue-black magical woman, walking, womb bright, walking loud with morning, walking, making pilgrimage to herself, walking. Okay. And so as I transition from several PDFs to the other, I will begin introducing our lovely readers today. I do want to remind everyone that there will be a brief talk back with the artists afterwards, so please drop any questions in the chat. And do also note whether you would like to ask your questions directly to the artists by indicating so in the chat. And here I am to introduce Mandy Wagner. a current student at Columbia University. I can't remember the first time I met Mandy, but when I see her dance, I know we are sisters. And when she speaks, I know we are daughters from the same tongue, no matter how scattered our seeds. Give it up for Mandy, y'all.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mandy. I'm excited to be here, excited to see all of you guys. This is one of my first readings since the pandemic, so I'm just really happy to be in this space with you all today. This first poem is about Haiti, and I'm happy to share it. I come from a place called Haiti. I'll speak as if you've never heard of it before. Sometimes she shakes, but you would too if your foundations were broken bones and heartbreak. Steady ground does it stand when it's taken from you. 1492 stains my teeth with blood, like the land my people had pulled from under them by the people who call it Haiti. Before that, it was Saint-Domingue. Before that, it was Española. Before that, it was nothing at all. My people call it Haiti, meaning land of the high mountains, the name given by those who were emptied from the land, whose dead bodies made space for people who look like me, the ones who would cry if they saw our island today the same way I do. But even in the wake of trauma, Haiti is beautiful. I'm just happy she remembers who she was before the slaughter. Daughter is a name my uncle called me when he remembered how to. He doesn't remember many things anymore. It's a side effect of Alzheimer's, of dying. I hope he remembers Haiti though, that he holds home in a place where even he can find, even now that his body quivers with the force of our crumbling nation. I can't remember what he looked like when he didn't. L'union fait la force. On Haitian Independence Day, we honor the revolution. Buckets of soup jumu overflow as acts of a revolution as we remember how delicacies were denied to the slave. We go to church and celebrate the revolution. We sing and dance like David for the revolution in Haiti. Ezekiel's valley of dry bones come alive. Those who died for the revolution, they too rise and spit and spit and spit praises for the revolution, because for so long, freedom is all we had, the only word we knew, and even that we had to pay for, but at least it was ours. Uncle doesn't say many words anymore. Revolution is never one of them. My name isn't either, but I still remember how happiness was at the forefront of his vocabulary, stress a mystery, carefree was all he knew how to be, and that was never me. I rode on a train of thought daily and never got off at my designated stop. When the kids would pop, lock, and drop it, I was dancing to the beat of my own drum, but somehow he always knew the tune too. He wasn't the type to say, I love you, but it was clear, and I wish he was here to hear me say it back. I'm under attack by the memories he no longer has of me. He still knows me, but for how long until I'm a stranger even he wouldn't stop to talk to, oh man. But it didn't take Alzheimer's for the world to forget Haiti, or for Haiti to forget how to be free, ashes to ashes. They've tried to turn my country into dust until all we have left to remember is all the ways we forget. So this next one is a little short story that my mom loves to tell. Yeah. My grandfather was an optometrist for about a week and a half. Legend has it that his son Kilik found a huge sack on his way home and hid it, thinking that it was a drug lord's earnings. He walked home as calmly as one can, carrying suspected drug money, then ran upstairs to his room only to discover that the treasure he believed he risked his life for was simply a hefty bag of prescription glasses. My grandpa, Papa Top, took that sack of glasses to church the next week. and announced to the congregation that he would be doing examinations and fittings after the service. It must have been some sight to behold. Papa Tope holding that dingy bag of mismatched glasses, holding up fingers and signs for the procession of people who awaited their first ever pair. And Grandpa was no amateur. You say your right eye sees better than your left? No problem. He would reach into his treasure sack, find two different pairs, and fashion them together until you left seeing better than when you came. Grown folks and children alike went home wearing anything from Hello Kitty originals to designer glasses, but everyone got their custom pair, Tope approved. And Papa Tope eventually lost his sight in his old age and has since passed, but no one has forgotten his brief stint in optometry. And ain't it funny that a blind man had once seen enough good in this world to make sure others saw it too? This one's called Love Language. My mother's tongue can pray you into submission without making a single sound. Her throat hums honeyed hymns into silence. Tendered words be golden ambrosia. Temple body rules by Bible God. Warm blessings sound like home. Home language curls mother's lips into paradise. Caresses my skin with warm Haitian sand and revolution until your mommy has quite a thick accent, huh? Erases a nation. Guidance counselor's quick tongue makes mine snarl, I snap. Sharpen my English with Haiti on my breath. Rosetta Stone my mother to death, and I will hurt you with the only language you know. Mama says no. Says love your enemy, love them like Jesus. I tell her, but mama, they killed him. But mama, don't play that shit. Ocean fires call for obedience, mind glazed with defiance. We argue and love's most silent language. My mother's tongue says I love you in a language her mother wasn't allowed to learn. I once asked mama, what language do you pray in? She said, the one God wants to listen to that day. I recite her history and can't wipe the colonizer off my breath. Remember, the only inheritance my ancestors left is a life better than theirs, ones where they don't fear, one where I don't fear the water that swallowed their sisters, swallowed their daughters, swallowed them. Asia says niggas can't drown if they were never allowed to swim. Black girls still know to run when raindrops fall, and ain't that trauma? My mother's tongue is a flood. Says God bless this flood, calls it great. Mama calls the flood a baptism. Tells me we're more water than anything else. The last heavenly body I swam in was my mother's, but mama still smiles with her head underwater. She laughs and sings. Mama never cares when she's drowning. Mama says beautiful things are supposed to our breath away. And why do we romanticize suffocation like that? Why spell death that way? Breath is the only thing that keeps us from sinking, so I never let mine go. When the flood comes, I beg the tide to retreat, to let me breathe, to let me breathe, let me breathe. My love language is an apology. It's a prayer begging, please don't hurt me the way I know you can, the way I'd never let you. I know my mother would trade her own heartbeat for the sound of her children's joy, and ain't that God? My mother and I love in a language that's unsinkable. Tony tells me thin love ain't love at all. I want to love in my mother's tongue, soft and uncolonized, love in a language that has never called us a slur. We love without life belts, swim in it. Without life rafts, we float. The sun shines and we beg it not to stop. It listens and we dance and dance home. My mother once told me she loves me so much it hurts. I wish it didn't have to. Okay. This last poem is called soul food. In Greek mythology, Hestia is the first devoured child of Kronos and the last is scourged, which is to say, she was the first to die and last to live. In every city, there was a fire that was never allowed to extinguish. Every meal cooked by the Greeks was an exaltation, a prayer thanking the deity who willed the magnificent fire to burn. If my soul could speak, she would coat her throat with divine nectar, whisper Tupac poems, blacker the berry, but I'd be a bruised fruit, but still good, still sweet, still will squeeze out what's left of me to wet your lips with all I have to offer. I hope I taste like Hestia, goddess of the hearth, like the forgotten one, like fireplaces and a laying of hands taste like home. My body is its own Hades, but I willed it into your Elysium, begged my shadow to welcome you. My tears were your milk and honey, but you prayed, the rivers overflowed. Licked them clean till they drained the cracks of me, burned the crops before the harvest. My body coaxes itself into something soft like cotton candy, hides its brittle, it's sour, it's hurt. To love me is to understand that I will love you more than I do myself, Hestia. I season my love with memories. I keep them for the people who can't hold them anymore. Uncle's eyes still get warm when he sees me, and I wonder if he remembers who he has forgotten. My heartbreak tastes like McChicken sandwiches, stale French fries, the air in that red van those summers, like ketchup and ice cream douce from grandpa's shaky palm and godmother's blue tin cookies. I often think about what your heartbreak would have tasted like on my tongue. If it would have cracked like pop rocks, I wonder if you can still taste some of mine. If you sip it with your pinkies up, if it becomes yours too. And then I remember Hestia, that her spot as an Olympian is a race to make space for Hades, god of dead things. People remember the dead things and not the fire that once kept them alive. But may my soul taste like an acknowledgement, a message to remember the times when I was both the fire and the sacrifice. Remember how I was never afraid to burn. Thank you, everyone, so much.
Yes. Yes, please continue to show your love for Mandy in the chat as we prepare for a rhythmic revolution. Natachi Mez. Natachi is a poet, and when I tell you she'll hype a nigga up. Last time I saw her, we were double dutching, and I'm willing that image into the future. Let her light bathe over you. Let her sound sanctify you. I promise you will not regret it. Give it up for Natachi.
Bryn, oh my goodness, these introductions got my heart just so happy, so full. Mandy, your words got me on just so much nourishment and so many layers. Thank you for that, Mandy. Wow, I'm feeling excited and just to share these poems. What you said, Bryn, really took me back for a second, that rhythmic revolution. Thank you for your words, Bryn. Thank you for that love. Thank you for your curation. We out here, we in here, we doing the teams, virtual teams. So I just want to welcome everybody here again. And I also invite you to take a deep breath with me before I get into these poems. So I'm gonna count to 3. I'll say inhale, we'll take it in. I'll say let it go, and you'll exhale if you'd like to join. So 1, 2, 3, inhale. Hold it, let it go. Bones and him. I let man consume my flesh. My bones cry blasphemy, unholy romance. Who would ordain this? I want him to myself, want myself to him, want us our own nation under blasphemy. I don't know if I like who I am becoming, my love unbecome me. Release the knots at my back. I crash into the bed of your bones. We rattle. Have we died here? Who will make a hymn out of this? We have made a hymn out of this. Hear love like rattle, newborn, crashing sea, pebble carried and dropped onto the shore. Another one, a shrine. God is everywhere. I don't want us our own nation. I want not to be alone. I am unbecoming. Blasphemy is difficult to commit once the God is in everything. Many times I have found salvation in the silver linings of my sins, and I am singing. I am singing. I am singing. Little gods, writers have mercy. It is written that you are little gods, and everything you pen is born. And we were penned, and we be mad at God have mercy. We pen little worlds mad at little gods. Is it our job to have mercy or to reflect the God we've been given, mercy laced into saliva, mercy inextricable from what breaks down we swallow or spit pride, depending on which side of the pen we stand between author and authored. We are author and authored, not quite trilogy, but still holy, still miracle, still little gods. And this next piece, it was born when I was going to create a poem or some type of talk. I was tasked to create a talk on the theme of silence, really thinking about silence, meditating on it. And of course, there's so many spaces where you can explore. You're going to hear the poem, but I just wanted to let you know in terms of what I was sort of meditating with when I started writing it. And this piece is titled, Lineage is Not Linear. According to the Oxford English Dictionary, silence is the complete absence of sound. Complete absent sound, complete absent sound, complete. Contrary to popular belief, I believe that we are all complete beings. But would I be remiss to act as if we aren't missing anything? To miss is to long for. Somehow I have been found transforming my fault lines into lines of poetry. This is how I excavate my roots. Knowledge forms with a quake, yet whispers to me softly. Lineage is not merely linear. My blood jumps. Don't you know where you come from? My tongue is transfusion, meaning donation, meaning everything I am has been given to me. My parents immigrated from Nigeria, and I'm still counting their sacrifices like blessings. But migration bears a heavy knife. What dies and so I live with a funeral at the tip of my tongue. Always mourning opportunity for its cost, a moment of silence. For everything that I have taken for granted, I am racing toward the family tree, arms wide open, deflowered and muddied, begging to be branched when I am fruit. I am fruit. I am fruit. According to the Oxford English Dictionary, silence is the complete absence of sound, absence. No one could find the apple. How far from the tree could it have fallen if it fell? And no one was around to hear. Did it make a soundtrack of America? Strange fruits, symphonies of Black death swaying, an orchestra of white supremacy. Many apples did not fall. They were plucked like the strings of a harp. What I am saying is, this was a song, unofficial national anthem. America is no Eden, wealth of nations, Adam's apple. Shame was our birthright. Look how clothed we are, dressed in skin, always on the eve of baptism, wading in the waters, yet still enough buoyancy in the black to lift every voice and sing, and sing, and sing. Jesus broke bread, black folks break beats, different church, still communion. Rhythm is sound, interspersed with silence testimony. Even where there are holes, there is holiness. I am standing face to face with the tree. Ask me, don't you know where you come from? I nod my head, marvel at how seeds scatter. Any soil that catches you mothers you somehow. So many curriculums attempt to alienate us from ourselves, but contrary to popular belief, I believe that we are all complete beings, that double consciousness is an out-of-body experience, that we are relearning to return to body, heaven embodied. None of us are property, never 3/5 person fractured, but never fraction can't even fathom our infinity. According to the Oxford English Dictionary, silence is the complete absence of sound. Sound is vibration. Every morning I rise and I set my timer for 10 minutes. From my bed, I face my palms skyward, transform my spine into tree trunk, close my eyes, and listen to my breath like Atlantic waves. Within the body, my belly rise and fall beyond the body. I hear the wind, the cars, the birds within the mind. I witness space expand. Sometimes a poem is birthing itself between breaths, and I am watching conception. Everything I am has been given to me to transform. I am fruit, which means I am also seed. Everywhere I go, I plant myself. In space, there is no sound. Sound needs a medium in which to travel. Here on Earth, my words transport through air and beat against drums, brush hair cells and wade through air fluids. Sound comes like a swim. With a stroke, there is no place on Earth. With complete absence of sound, there is no time on Earth. When you are completely absent, sounds like the truth. Sound is vibration. Vibration is life. We are fractured, but never fraction. Listen. Can you hear the infinity? Listen. The seeds scatter. We are fruits. Everywhere we go, we are planted. Listen. Lineage isn't merely linear. We are all raising each other. I'm going to need a little breath after that one. Wow, my spirit. Wow. I just feel so grateful that I get to share some poems with y'all. I think as of late, I think some performances and just getting back into that rhythm of sharing poems, it's coming back. And it's interesting. It's like this kinship. It's not that it ever ended, but it just feels like this reunion with something that had such a different rhythm over the past months. And so it's so interesting to kind of re-meet myself in this way too. Thank y'all so much for showing some love in the young Zoom chat. I feel the engagement, I feel the energy. I got 2 more poems for y'all. Yes, shout out to the homecoming. You feel me? Shout out to Bryn, the visionary, always. This next piece is titled Drumhead. Earthquake of palm and skin, shattering nothing but our will to stand still. My hips become active fault lines. I dance and you talk with your hands full of orishas and bass and tone and slap diasporic drum, resurrecting every language that died is undead. Unrecognized ancestors are still ancestors. The medium in which life begat life begat life begat the drum beat tells me where I come from. And I am everything that made me at once. And to take us home, to another beautiful poet. I have one final poem I'm going to share with y'all. Thank y'all so much for being present with us. It is a gift, a gift, a gift. This last piece is titled a drum in 3 sounds. 1, bass. Drop hand on center of the drum head. Fingers, palm, heel of hand. The drum will talk back and forth, centuries before and beyond you. Wooden time travel, body carved from tree body, hollow and still full, descendant of breath givers. The drum gives and takes breath. The drum is language. It's living ancestor. It talks back and forth. Drop palm on center of heart. Hold it there. Your beat will talk back and forth, centuries before and beyond you. That which runs through us has run before. Run, run, run. That which runs through us has run, run, run before. Breathing heavy. Living ancestor. Talk back and forth. Time travels through us. Hand on drum, hand on heart. I am still learning the language that runs through us. A blood river cuts through me. I am lost to myself. 2, tone. Extract any space between fingers. Drop fingers toward the edge of the drum head. The drum will talk back and soar from its skin, rushing to reunite with its skin, higher pitch. You can make a drum scream, can make a dancer cry. Beautiful movement. A drum can make you scream. A dancer can make you cry. Beautiful movement. A dancer can make a drum dance, can make you dance. You drum, every being a shaper, a shifter. Every being shaped, shifting back and forth, shifting back and forth. Time travels through me like a ship in the sky. Time traveled through me into the hands of God. I know how it feels to have wings. The edge of the drum has wings, pushed us to the edge. We are no one's margin. Flew to the center of ourselves, marching. Marching is a form of rhythm. Many have tried to ban the drum, the tongue, the sway of hips as if Black language is gone. But the spirit is armed, has arms, moves from body to body, embodied. The spirit can't die. Learn to drum without drums. Learn to fight while dancing. Sweeten tears with sugar cubes of laughter, wounded where we are loved. Loved where we are wounded. There are spirits that can't be stomped out. We stomp. Children of boom. I couldn't be unrelated to rhythm if I tried. 3, slap. Gently insert space between your fingers. Drop them toward the edge of the drum head and quickly let your hand bounce back up. Quick light drop, quick light flight, reverberating from drum skin. My pupils remember the sun and my warmth returns. Skin salted, ocean slick. Couldn't be alone if I tried. Atlantic opened its mouth wide, I dive in. Baptism or funeral. Baptism or funeral. Baptism and funeral. Baptism and funeral. Baptism and funeral. God gave me guilt for all my lives. Before and beyond me. The dead are still shaping us. I'm swimming with those who have dreamt with the fishes. Thank y'all so much for your time, for your space, for your energy. Okay, we connecting in this little Zoom universe. We out here, and it's been such a pleasure. Cynthia, it's been great getting to perform this alongside of you. It's really beautiful. I feel that kinship. And yeah, we live, we out here. And Brittany is going to let us know what's next.
Oh, Natasha, every time you speak, I just smile. Oh my gosh. And what I tell y'all, that's Natasha's way. Rhythmic revolution, ultimate hype woman, truly. I'm so happy now to introduce to the space my beloved friend, Jaden McClam. Jaden studies at Howard University in DC and is a student of rest and water. I told them recently that their poems feel like lying in a bed of grass with sun or moonlight swathing your body. Sounds like an Aquarius to me. Give it up for Jaden, y'all.
Thank you so much, Bryn. Yeah, I'm so grateful for everyone here. Grateful especially to Bryn for organizing this space and putting so much labor and care into it. And thank to all of you who are here, all the 51 of you, and folks watching in the future. My name is Jaden, and this first poem is a ghazal, and it's a series of couplets, which with the last word in each couplet being the same. And I was sort of contemplating stillness and letting myself be still. It's called Ghazal, after Trisha Hersey from the Nat Ministry and Sister Rosetta Tharpe. Whenever I sit still, I start crying. Skull rock against the pillow, I reach for rest, and salted jewels pool in the bowl of my ear, struck from the volume of quiet rest. In class, it's just me and my screen, a year. My voice ricochets off the glass. I search for eyes, but pixels don't witness, forget how I speak, and pirate rest. Rippin' and runnin', my grandma say, could burn a hole in my belly all the time I spend in flight. It asks for me as much as I deny it. Rest. I meet my gaze in the mirror and choose I ain't gonna study war no more. Drop the shield and let the light stretch. Flood yellow in violet rest. Air of this body, your birth itself a miracle. Each saline spiral frees a kindred dance. Take your dead with you and riot, rest. And this next poem is part of a suite of poems that I'm working on with the same title, all exploring like compulsory heterosexuality. And this poem is called What I Meant When I Said I Forgot I'm a Lesbian. In grade school, I cracked all that I could, each joint a note in a baritone scale, play knuckles and wait for gasps. Applause enough. My favorite act for the public, spine. Gripping the back of my chair, I pull, ribs straining until flipped over on my chest. Strumming a crescendo of vertebrae pitches. Some days, toes too, bending my socked nails against the floor, awaiting the sharp pop. Twisting my arm around the air in a swirling contortion, fingers reaching for their future selves, a show of limbs. How else was I to release my sound without opening my mouth? Look at me, unnatural. Full split into two different selves, and neither recognizable as flesh. Watch my old, not friends, laugh, sneer. Anyway, there were teeth, and I relished the glint. This next poem is about heartbreak and grief. Yeah, like a meditation on what, thanks mom, a meditation on what opens, like a heartbreak that opens me up, back up to myself. It's called Since. Since I'm crowded with questions of how much a phantom love I need. The answer I tell myself is none. The question returns, why When someone opens their mouth in my direction, I pray they do not look away. Thank them profusely. Rinse myself malted mirror. I saw you by the salad. You gave me coconut oil, a book of poems, money for my mother's bills. We sat by the salad as I skirted the word romance and wished. You messaged me at 5:55 a.m. I thought our meeting sacred. That night, the moon mirrored your silhouette. I beamed up at your face and beat my brain for better words. Brilliant, articulate. I've sat on that same bench, asked the magnolia for reason. I pulled the devil 5 times. Extremes, both of us. I felt like we were running out of days. You promised and then promised anew, and I revered the diction. Felt around my body for your birth time. Your guess was same as mine. With you, I was part of a discovery. What were we stretching towards? Have you stopped looking or found it? I longed for your word so much that I swallowed some of it. Invoked your memory every way I could. Thought it would will you back to me. I wore your heavy shirt in the summer, sweat pooling under my breasts. I waited for your word. I count the months and need another hand. All right. Thank y'all. This last poem is, I wrote it right before the pandemic hit. And where I was like, my watch that I was wearing, I still had the tan line like from the summer before. And this was in like February. So it was bringing me a lot of joy to like look at the tan line. It brought me back to the summer. And it was great. And it was a really good, like, I kept reflecting on the kinship that I felt from the summer throughout the pandemic as I was working on this poem. So it's called Ode to the Tan Line That Hugs My Wrist, February 2020. And this is after Ode to Shea Butter, a poem by Angel Nafis. A measure of how much the sun has loved me. You have stayed into the cold quiet. A message from the old season. From the summer, my shoulders softened. When the earth in all her gazes were a hand at my back, urging trust. When I learned mugwort and found it tall at the corner. When I wished for lilac and, dew brave, crossed the dirt to see the blossoms. I touch you and feel the wind as I pedal, treading the air, speeding towards the water. When my brother and I took turns with the skateboard's clatter, his laughter bubbling the parking lot. I look as if to tell time and remember the black walnut tree pods fragrant like Skittles, Natasha giving me her home for those 5 quiet days, tomatoes ripening over dirt in a pot, catnip's promise. When I laid in Mari's bed, stoned and wasn't devoured by a wound, I saw hearts dance in the ceiling's crackle. And doesn't the best love remind you of your other loves, sweet in the day? Doesn't it plead that you deserve every ounce? Oh, arc of skin, I see you in time travel. I skip days and marvel at the miracle of heat, once christening me black as mud. And here you are to tell me. Every day I held the dirt in my hands. Every day I unclasp my watch and find you, beaming. the only thing that's holding me till summer. Thank y'all.
Wow. Oh, arc of skin, I see you in time travel. What a line. Thank you, Jaden. Finally, I am so happy to introduce a longtime friend of mine, Tam Paler, who goes by the alias Y/X equals Tam. I've known her since freshman year of high school when we made music videos and she went by Tan Too Cool and I went by Bryn Too Hot. My fellow East Atlanta Shawty, give it up for Tan, y'all.
Hi guys, I am going to close this out tonight with a few of my pieces. I'm not really good at descriptions, so I am just going to jump into it. This first piece is called Kingdom of Hearts. As a little girl, princesses taught me that living meant loving, and loving meant looking the part, so I fixed everything until I was perfect like the princess. Gave my face a fresh paint job, sucked out my insides with a vacuum, even drove myself off a cliff. Maybe falling in love feels like falling to my death. I ignored little wedding dress colored lies. Made myself resentment sweet like honeymoon to better swallow. And I always swallow. 'Cause what good is a wife who only uses her tongue to talk? How useful can she be if she only uses her throat to scream every woman in my family a fairy godmother? Coaching me on how to get the attention of a man, turned pumpkin into carriage befitting for my baggage, taught me to make like mice and turn a blind eye, and I often wonder what my prince will be like. 'Cause I have been waiting my whole life to belong to him, and all he had to do was show up and say, marry me, don't worry. I'll cut off my toes to make the shoe fit. Sometimes it just takes a little blood, a sacrifice of limb to finally get your hands on the dream. They say happily ever afters are what keeps the girls going. What gives us hope that maybe someone will climb this tower we've locked ourselves away in. Breathe spirit into this lifeless body with a kiss, but a fairy tale will never be real. That's what makes it a fairy tale. My mother drilled this tiara on my head down with bolts anyways. And now I go nuts over any nigga that tells me he loves me. Bedtime stories feeling more like instructions than a kiss goodnight. But when my mother finishes her story and says, I love you, I believe her. So I make rehearsal out of imitating this to make every man believe me. I will reteach this to my daughter. Tell it every night like a fairy tale. I'll tell her if nothing else. Convince that man you love him, convince yourself. Because there ain't no happy ending without a kiss, and you can't kiss yourself. My mother taught me be seen, not heard. Scolds me when I chew with my mouth opened. How dare I swallow my pride with my jaws unlatched like that? Princesses can't have Buddha bellies. Make yourself empty and he'll treat you like a god because all he wants to do is fill you outside. I am sparkling. Like the slippers on my feet, like the tiara bolted on my head, a wrench in my mother's hand, a leash in my lover's. I hope my castle has a nice view. And that was Kingdom of Hearts. Yeah. This next piece is called Standing Ovation. This one is more about vulnerability. I think something with my writing that I often touch on is something that I've been working through personally for most of my life, and that is vulnerability. So this is a piece that I wrote when I was under a lot of stress, when I felt overwhelmed, but I felt like I didn't have an outlet for that. So this was my outlet. I hope you enjoy it. Standing ovation. When my professor asks why I've skipped the last 4 classes, I tell him, I'm sorry. I'm going through a lot right now. I know I haven't been performing well. Please pardon my unexcused absences. I've been feeling weighed down like my grade. Like all of myself is finally catching up to me, and all the stuff weighing on my shoulders made out of cement. But as my professor stares blankly back at me, what I really want to say is, I don't give a fuck about no functions. Which is to say, my friend's barely seen me out lately, and I really want to tell him fuck this class, but I don't, because I know how to act right. If nothing else, I'ma always act right, and even though this Emmy award-winning actress been feeling a little iffy, I ain't got no choice but to perform damn good. My call time is 24/7. Every time I part my lips, I puke out monologue. Every conversation feels like an interview. See, I'm forgetting how to interact with people. I blame social media for my anxiety because now everywhere I go, I'm striving for heart eyes. Some sort of standing ovation, just something to signify that the show is finally over, so I can walk off this stage that is existence. But everybody always want a fucking encore. They always want the curtains to stay drawn. I just need some privacy. Sometimes I want to forget what my own voice sounds like. Seal my mouth shut. Set fire to the theater so I can stop attending my own show. Checks in to try and restore my health. But when the doctor asks me if I've ever had suicidal thoughts, I tell him no, because the show must go on. And a Black body don't get the luxury of scheduling its own death like that anyways. I do tell him I haven't been eating, that ovations and starvation might take me before a blade or gun ever could. Nowadays, I can only finish a meal with a blunt as my side dish. I say sorry after every sentence. I wonder if this is just me saying the one still trapped in my mother's teeth. I passed vulnerability on the street the other day, and I didn't even know it was him. The same thing happened with my father, and I pretended to be the girl who does not flinch. I have been auditioning for this role since before I can remember, so I get on stage where they make spectacle out of me, like I am doing right now. And when the therapist asks, "Are you okay?" I shoot out yes like I'm reading a script. I don't know if my toes bloody from all this running away from my problems or the roses being thrown at my feet. And the last time my family asked me if I had been taking care of myself, I almost forgot my lines. But then I paused. I took a deep breath, and without a flinch, I said, "I'm sorry. I'm going through a lot right now. I know I haven't been performing well, but don't worry. I'ma act right." Okay, that's standing ovation. And this last piece is something similar, something I wrote when I felt overwhelmed. This piece is about imposter syndrome. As a creative, which I'm sure many of us are here today, it gets very, very easy to forget why you're creating the art in the first place. And you get caught up in these clout politics of who's successful given the amount of attention that they get or the amount of success that they have. And you forget to just take your time and understand that as a person, you're going to have wins and losses, and it's a part of the experience. So this was a piece that I made for that. All right. Us. Every time I look at my own reflection, the girl staring back at me tell me I'm not who I say I am no more. She says, "Girl, who the fuck do you think you are?" She tells me to go hide away underground, find solace in the shadows. I call her my tethered, because I can't tell which one of us is the real me. And maybe all a bitch really need is a little pep talk. I think it's just imposter syndrome got the syllables sitting inside my esophagus. stuck. The thoughts inside my head racing and words starting to blend together. I try to get my self-image distorted like the mirrors in a funhouse. I'm getting stretched thin, I'm stressed, running around trying to convince the girl in the mirror that I'm something worth looking at, that I'm something worth listening to, even when I can't find all the right words. I opened my mouth to give that pep talk another go, but no words coming out. The girl in my reflection got her hands wrapped around my neck now. She telling me I'm not doing enough, telling me I could do better. Maybe she doing the right thing by shutting me up, because truthfully, the things I've been saying to myself lately ain't been that honest. I've been sugarcoating shit so long and it's only made me more bitter. It's not easy to admit that I don't know what the fuck I'm doing or who the fuck I am. A part of me is begging to not give a fuck at all, because every word that break free from my mouth only make me a prisoner to my unrealistic expectations of what I should have accomplished by now. Measuring my worth in standing ovation. So here I sit in this red jumpsuit, scissors in hand, ready to cut off anything that bring me out my comfort zone and ready to cut any nigga that dare get too comfortable. This is the only time me and my tethered really agree. Shit, it's us versus them. I can't choose you and myself, baby. My tethered too possessive. Her and my anxiety hold me hostage. Some days they be beating my ass. And after every blow to my self-confidence, she say, see, who gonna love you besides me? It's us. Always just be us. I've tried to escape and find love somewhere else, but chasing gut-wrenching eros my whole life has only sent me backwards and left with a sore. Looking back on relationships, I could ask who failed who. But the answer's evident. I'm the problem. I've always been shitty at learning lessons. When will it click that you cannot escape yourself and other people? My guardian angels probably red and raspy voice from screaming at me. They can't seem to understand why I can't find a home within myself for long. As if there isn't a war inside my bathroom every time I look in the mirror. But I've been trying to make peace, become less of a stranger to my own eyes. I'm trying to make this body feel like home so I don't have to go wander into someone else's. Because when they ask me what I want and what I'm doing here, it always gets harder and harder to get the words out. It's better for everyone if I'm alone with my own reflection, because it'll always just be us. Me and my tethered on a joyride to despair, and baby, this a two-seater. I let her take the wheel and she steer me in every wrong direction. She called me a fraud. I say, you right. Spaces I should have thrived in, and tables I had seats at I left, but can I really be upset? This downward spiral is my fault. It's my own thoughts blocking my road to success. I can't go a day without feeling fraudulent. My nights filled with failed pep talks in an attempt to feel anything other than inadequate. My tethered stands there with her scissors and a sloppy grin, never letting me forget every time I didn't make the cuts. Reminds me of when I didn't get that internship, or when I didn't win that one slam, or when the music doesn't quite sound like the vision. But over the years, I've been able to see her tricks in 2020. For every failure, I remind myself there is a win. The job offer, the championship. I'm trading out this one woman competition and extending myself a congratulations. That one stanza may be all I have. These may be the only right words I have to give myself, but just like me, it is enough. And when my tethered is driving me insane, I'll stick my head out of the window and laugh, because it's not just us. I'm not the only one dealing with imposter syndrome. It's her, it's him, it is us, and it's also them. Thank you.
Wait, Tan, finish with that, the ending. I like that part.
Okay. I always forget about that part. And when you're tethered, ask you who the fuck you think you are. Tell them whoever the fuck you want to be. All right.
Her.
Thank you, Tan. Oh, that one hit. That's why I need to hear that that last little couplet, because thank you so much, Tan. If all the readers could turn on their cameras, we're going to transition into a short Q&A. Ooh, continue to show some love for Tan in the chat, y'all. Yeah, the gang's all here, period. Okay. So as a reminder, feel free to send any questions in the chat, but I can get us started. I guess I have a question for, I have so many questions. I guess I'd like to ask a question broadly. I know that, for instance, in the poem that I read earlier during the introduction, I speak of family and familial ties, and many of the poems today also touched on that theme. I'm wondering how you all work through it, because it's not easy to talk, especially when there's a chance, like for instance, my mom is in the audience today, and like sharing that very vulnerable, or can be very vulnerable, revelation that they may not be aware of. Or even, for instance, with you, Mandy, speaking of people who are not in this space, for instance, your uncle or your grandfather. I'm interested in knowing how you work through speaking about family in your work. Anyone?
Yeah. For me, so both my uncle and my grandfather, who I mentioned in the poems, have passed. And like the one poem about like my grandfather was an optometrist is my mom's story, you know, and that's I just feel like it's kind of a duty of mine to tell the stories of the people I love, who can't share their lives with us anymore, especially like everyone in my family, I guess. I'm thinking about all things at once, but it's just like they're all storytellers. They love talking, they love sharing with people. And so if it's like, if I'm the only one who holds these memories, I can't trust my mind, because, you know, things just can happen. So writing it down, putting words into the ether allows for like them to exist somewhere else outside of me as well.
Thank you so much. And I also want to expand the idea of family to people who feel like family or once did. And also, given the theme of homecoming, like what does it mean to revisit those memories? Especially in cases where they could be like potentially like traumatic, you know? Because that's something I'm also working through in my work. There are some very sad poems I could have read today, but it's also like, you know, what you decide to bring in the space. And so, yeah, would anyone else like to share?
I would love to, like, if I could low-key ask a follow-up to Mandy. I'm so sorry. But of course, from what Bryn first offered, and listening to you, Mandy, kind of feeling this sort of duty, but also, I don't know, something about this lineage or carrying on legacies. And I would love to hear more from you about that. Like, where's the value there in terms of thinking of what you carry on or carry forth, as it pertains to your family, your lineage, to people's stories that you carry and continue to share.
Yes, okay, I can. Because so some of the pieces I shared today are from a portfolio I have. It's called What's Going On. And it just like it has so many audio recordings of my mom telling stories or singing songs, or songs of my uncle and his band that my dad was in. Like, funny story, my mom and my dad are together because my dad was in a Christian, like Haitian band with his brothers and my mom's brothers, and like they were friends, and my mom would sing with them, and then now they're married for 24 years. So it's just, a lot of our history together is through sounds and like storytellings. And I only know these because they were told to me. And as people are leaving, like leaving the earth, or just like a lot of us have moved away and everything, without telling those stories further, it feels like they cease to exist, especially when there's stories about back home, because it's so sad that I haven't been able to go visit Haiti, and I would love to. But yeah, just knowing about a land that only exists through the stories that you've told from, that you've been told, you want to preserve that so much. Yeah.
Oh, thank you for getting more into that. I'll give, like, yeah, thinking about the question and even thinking about what you were just saying, Mandy, like feeling a sort of kinship there in terms of what becomes in the poem or what is alive in the poem. Of course, the poem takes from life things that already exist, right? Um, and I suppose it can be different in terms of what I bring to perform and what is sort of just comes out of me, and those things that are sort of just like processing. Or I don't know for y'all, like for me though, right? Like sometimes writing just feels like listening or vomiting. That sounds a little violent, but just things are coming out of me. And it's then this form of listening and talking back to it. And in terms of how like family or loved ones or other spaces of like complicated relationships show up, it's not always an intention that I enter with, but it comes, it happens, it shows up because it's the fabric of my life. And sometimes it can feel really special in a way, almost like gospel or the scripture. Like these are like the holy figures of my life almost. These are the people in my life that are giving me messages, who are informing how I move, how I take shape. But it can also be difficult, right? Especially thinking about like poems about parents, because Lord knows, for me, that thing can be definitely complicated, right? Because there's love, but there's tension. There's spaces of misunderstanding, of pain, of things that are unhealed, things I don't have language for quite yet, things that I probably wouldn't always say in plain language. I know there are some pieces where I'm like, if my parents in the audience, we're gonna have to, we're gonna have to switch that. Y'all, parents, don't watch this video. They in this house somewhere. But yeah, it's interesting, I think, though, because I think sometimes the way language is woven, whatever lyricism that may be had with it, it can also, I think, offer this other sort of freedom. Maybe I don't have to tackle something head on or directly, or maybe I can find language in this lyrical space that maybe gets me to a form of like, oh, I can say this in plain language. Like I get this part of myself and my relationship a little better now. So it's definitely different across the board. Mhm.
I get exactly what you feel about like it not being always so much intention, but even compulsion. And I think that this kind of answers Durham's question, but like writing process. So, okay, so I could just be walking, going about my life, going about my day, and then something like words will come to my mind, and I open up my notes app, write down 5 words, and I'll come back to them sometime. And it could be like there's still some notes from like 2019. I'm just like, yo, what was that? You know what? And I have so many just like random, because I was doing some cleaning the other day, and it was just like like there were 5 different notes from 5 different months, just random times where I said when the aliens come, and I'm just like, I don't know what I meant there. I don't know what that will be, but it will be something I get to. So yeah, and I guess when I finally finish them is it's harder in quarantine. Writing has been a lot harder in quarantine, but I think more recently, especially with, I don't know, I talk about this a lot and it never makes sense, but maybe it'll make sense to people here. But I have like, I'm very attuned to like the sensory, you know, like, so now that it's getting colder outside, right? I've been feeling feelings that I felt maybe last fall or maybe the fall before that. Um, and it's just like I feel myself in relation to those feelings. Like they don't be, it's, I can feel the separation between who I was and like where I am, and that is always a like inspiration to write. Same thing happens with perfume, or like when I go into an environment I used to be in, and sometimes it just makes you want to say some things. Yeah. I love to hear about all of your writing processes though, because I would love some inspiration on how to do it right now. It's hard sometimes.
Mm. Oh, were you gonna say something, Ben? No. Okay.
No, I was gonna extend it. I was
Go
gonna
ahead.
you.
Very cool. Yeah, I was for me, it's mostly about like setting aside intentional time to like sit down and write. Like I do have like moments of inspiration sometimes, but it can be hard. Something that I'm working with is allowing myself like permission to like express myself and to write. And so definitely setting aside like dedicated time to do that, and then like seeing what comes out. But that is how I usually do it.
Yeah, Jaden, while you're on, there's a question for you in the chat. Marian says, I read you're studying psychology, and I was wondering, how do you avoid, or if you do something to change gears, being too cerebral or rational to show us the strong vulnerability in your poems? Have you reflected on that? Or maybe it hasn't been an issue and maybe has given an insight actually.
Yeah, thank you for that question, Marianne. Yeah. I feel like I have a pretty easy time with, I think like I'm like a very like emotionally attuned and like vulnerable and sensitive person like in my life. And so I feel like that carries onto the page like pretty well. It's actually kind of the reverse, where sometimes like it can be like sometimes I can like be too, what's the word, when you're submerged in water like with like emotions, and it can be hard to like get into the rational space when it's time to like do an assignment or like that sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, Tang, you shared a little bit about your writing process for a few of your poems, but can you share more?
Yeah, of course. My writing process is actually pretty similar to Mandy's. I just have random notes just from random times. Like if I'm in an Uber and I see something, or if I'm hanging out with friends and I have like a random thought. I've always just utilized writing as more so documentation. Like I feel like I'm narrating my own life. So if something happens that I feel like I want to remember this moment, because we can't really trust our memories, then I will write it down. And like she said, it'll be like probably one sentence or maybe 2 words, but it'll always turn into something later. I think I just leave nuggets for the future version of myself. In my environment, it honestly, like even in quarantine, I've been inspired by just random things that happen, or random thoughts that cross my mind, or maybe dreams or something. Or like when we are back outside, or when we are able to fully be back outside, just events in my life, like painful experiences, beautiful experiences, like relationships that I have with friends or people that I don't really care for, and like encounters that I have where I learn about myself. Just really anything. I think as a writer, you use your pen as just an ode to your growth. So like she said, when you see a writing from a year ago and understand that, wow, my mind literally doesn't work like that anymore, or I literally like don't feel that way at all about the situation, it can be a very beautiful thing to just be able to see yourself in those states and just see how time has shaped you. So yeah.
Ooh, yes, an ode to your growth. I love that. And I have never thought about it that way, but I'm gonna keep it. There's another question for Natachi. Um, I felt in your poems there was a time wave sensation as opposed to linear time, and it made me wonder, how do these stories come to you? Do they also come in waves, or do they come in a sudden strike?
Oh, yeah. So I think this one can also relate to that process aspect that folks are speaking on. Whew, it truly is a mixed bag, okay? Because there are times I think similar to Mandy Tan, those things that just kind of like, we got a little song lyric, we got something, we see something. The poet in me is like, okay, this is a poem, okay. And then Jaden, I definitely love what you say. Like, I think that just making that space for expression is something that's really special to me. At different seasons in my life, it can look more consistent, it can look random, but it's something I really treasure. Just having one, I journal often. So sometimes maybe just in reflection, things just pour out. Sometimes I set intentional time for creative free writing, where I write in verse, write whatever that may mean. And just having this space where it's like, okay, something can come out of here. And I think I have faith now. You know, I see it time and time again where I get into those modes or feelings where it's like, I ain't got nothing to say. I have nothing of value to add to anything. I don't know what to do. It's like, oh, something's happening. There are things that are consistently being born and can come to life once the pen is in motion. And then there are also moments where I know I'm writing towards something as well. Potentially write something like this theme of homecoming. When I'm sort of given this thing that I want to create towards or create for, or maybe there's something about creative community, right? I know I'm committing to something that has to do with a creative community. I'm going to be there. I'm going to do this thing. And that kind of creates a frame for me to enter when I am free writing, or when I know maybe I'll kind of daydream on it, meditate on it. And then I just then get, who knows, maybe I procrastinate. And all of a sudden it's in 2 days. But that meditation and that dreaming, there's something happening there. There are threads being born. So truly, it's a bit all over the place. Sometimes there are those things or themes on my heart where I'm like, I actually want to write this out. I want to spend time with this because it's stuck on me. It can't get off of me. So yeah, it's a lot of variation. And then also sometimes I look like for different, you know, maybe there's a publication that's like one, for example, there's a place called Place Journal, and they're doing a call. And actually, Jaden, I was thinking about you because the theme for it is sleep. And I know you're a student of rest in water, and I feel like you can have such beautiful things to contribute there, as well as all of us here. And that's something where I'm like, oh, wow, I want to create towards that. I want to be in a dream space for that. Let's see what I can do. So it's a mixy mix.
Thank you so much. Beautiful questions. And I feel like, Natachi, what you said about writing towards something, but also the poetry being what you're writing towards, really ties in with this idea of language guide, or its capacity to guide, but also be something that you're guided towards, which I see in all of y'all's work. Like I said, hearing y'all is like coming home to myself. Which is why I'm so glad we were able to have these amazing poets today. I would like to invite everyone to share your enthusiasm, your gratitude, your thanks in the chat. With that, I would love to thank our amazing interpreter, again, Cynthia. Shout out to Roberto from the Poetry Project staff. Shout out Maddie, who's working behind the scenes with tech. And just thank you to everyone for joining us. You know, it's a Friday night, it's spooky season, but you chose to be here with us. And of course, if you want to catch any of this again, feel free to check it out once the recording is posted on the event page. Also gonna hold space for any of the artists to list places that folks can support and follow your work and its growth. I'm gonna hold space for that. And without further ado, thank you. Thank you for coming to our homecoming.
Destiny's Child. My college was traveling around the world, and life was my teacher. I wanted a Black orchestra. I wanted the steppers. I needed the vocalists. I wanted different characters. I didn't want us all doing the same thing. And the amount of swag is just limitless. Like, the things that these young people can do with their bodies and the music they can play and the drum rolls and the haircuts and the bodies and it's just not right. It's just so much swag.
I rock diamonds on my neck, got diamonds on my records. Since 15, coming down, ripping Texas. How you gonna neglect this? You was just a hot mess. You can call Tyrone, you ain't got to like it. What about my body? You don't want my body. Acting like I'm nobody, you gon' make me call somebody. I think it's time to go. He don't want no more. You better come back here with the good help.